Joining me now to discuss is retired Marine intelligence officer and host of the Strat podcast, Hal Kempfer. Always great to have you on the show. Hal, I've just got to start with your reaction to what we've just witnessed.
Laura, this is about as breaking news
Yeah.
gets. I mean, literally, we have the hostages have been released. They're in Israel. They are being basically they've gone through medical screening. They're being flown to the hospital. What's interesting though, and we won't see this. They're doing this differently than they did last time. Last time there was just too much exposure. They felt the hostages, the families are being interviewed. The hostages had too much exposure. They're really respecting their privacy. They have very set protocols on how they're bringing the hostages in, who they meet initially, the phases, if you will, of how they meet them. They even have a special trailer set up where they actually get them out of a hospital environment and give them a chance to decompress before they move back home. It's rather interesting what's being done there, but they're really paying a lot of attention to the physical and mental health of the hostages.
You know, as we take a look at these images, and again, if you're just joining us, we are looking at video into our newsroom of the first initial moments of the hostage release. And we've been trying to figure out the women that are being moved from one vehicle to another. There's a pink scarf that they're wearing, and that's how we're tracking them in a very chaotic scene. But we know that they are on their way now to receive the medical aid that they so badly need. Again, they have been held underground in tunnels for 471 days. Hal, tell us about the military strategy here. You know, why isn't this war over? Because, you know, Hamas has lost so many leaders. Why are we still here? What is it going to take to end this thing for good?
Well, Laura, what you're seeing, for example, with these images, you're seeing the Qassam Brigade Hamas fighters. You know, this was one of the goals of Israel going in was to destroy Hamas. Pretty tough goal. And not only have the hostages been underground, but literally a lot of the fighters have been underground. Very difficult to clear out a subsurface sort of thing where you have these fighters that are permeated throughout the region. Even though they militarily destroyed the battalions, brigades, the larger units, these smaller units, these insurgents, if you will, are still there. And of course, one of the big frustrations for the military is that in doing this entire thing, the hostage negotiation or the hostage exchange and sending in the aid, Hamas still controls the ground. And that's going to be a big problem because going into phase two, and we heard President Biden say it this morning, Hamas is not supposed to be in control of Gaza. They're not supposed to be a military threat, yet here they are. How are they going to move forward to eliminate the threat?
You know, as we continue to watch these incredible images that we've waited so long, I can't even imagine. I keep going back to the mothers who are waiting for their daughters. The three mothers of these three hostages that are being released today are waiting for them. The family members of Emily, Doron, and Romy, they are waiting for them. I can't imagine. They spoke to them 470 days ago. And now they're going to get to talk to them today. As we talk about the emotional toll for these three and the others that are still being held, I mean, how do you wrap your mind around that? And how is this part going to work in terms of the stages of medical care that they're going to get and then waiting, you know, everybody's holding their breath for the rest of the hostages?
Laura, it is that overwhelming emotion, but all the psychology. You know, when you've been held hostage like that, and I can't say I've ever had that experience. I mean, I have gone through training where you're held as a prisoner of war in training, not actually. There is a tremendous amount of emotion, the psychological degradation that goes with that. And that's what the Israelis are working very closely on is to, you know, repatriate them, but do it in a phased way that it doesn't overwhelm the hostages. Same thing for the family. You know, they're kind of rebuilding a relationship. Something, something huge has happened here. Horrific, but huge has happened that has changed their life. It's going to forever change the way that these hostages see the world and certainly how the families deal with them. So they're working through that phase by phase. And one of the things I will say is the Israelis learned a lot during the first ceasefire not to overwhelm the hostages because that was one of the criticisms was there was just too much.
Right.
It was a little bit of sensory overload, and they're trying to make sure they don't do that.
Hal, I've got to ask you, there's a lot of fear that this deal will not hold. What is the likelihood all three phases are carried out? Everybody, is hoping for that, but how likely is it?
It's going to be tough. There's a lot of optimism that, day 16 and phase one negotiations start phase two and everything. But the problem is, as you saw, Hamas is on the ground, and that is not supposed to be something that's the end state, if you will.
Right.
The other is the Israelis are pulling out of the urban areas. They're going to be watching what Hamas does. They're going to be watching how they move and everything else. And they're going to be looking to see, are they going to reconstitute themselves as a force? The big problem with phase two, really going into phase three, is once the Israeli forces pull out of that Philadelphia corridor, it separates Egypt from Gaza, that's when potentially weapons could start getting smuggled back into the Gaza Strip. That's where Hamas could really start reconstituting. That's going to be a big hurdle for the negotiation as to how do they stop that? How do they remove Hamas from being a military threat?
And I want to remind our viewers what we're looking at right now on your screen. We've got our cameras at the Washington Monument right now, where there is a very large group protesting and reminding the incoming administration there's more to go with the faces of the remaining hostages. And there's a lot of signage there thanking President-elect Trump for his role, but saying basically do not forget about the rest of these people who are still being held. We are going to leave it right there, Hal. I want to thank you so much, retired Marine Intelligence Officer Hal Kempfer. I always look forward to your perspective, and I appreciate you today, as you said, on this very big breaking news day.